Good afternoon, everyone. Can you please stand? Welcome to the Cade Museum for this March 30th meeting of the Rotary Club of Gainesville. My name is Tom Collette, your Sergeant at Arms. Before we get underway, just this reminder for those of you watching after the fact on YouTube, we ask that you register your participation by sending an email to info@rotarygainesville.org. That's info@rotarygainesville.org. We begin each meeting with song and pledge. In the absence of one of our song leaders today, that duty falls on yours truly. So join me now in singing America, some call it My Country 'Tis of Thee. Here we go. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. Now join me in our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now please remain standing. Our president with a special announcement and a memory. Matthew.
Fellow Rotarians, unfortunately, it's been a lot too frequent lately. But nonetheless, hopefully you received my email. If not, on Friday evening this weekend, we lost another Rotarian. Joe Dustin, or Dusty Walters, passed away. Ask you to continue to remember his wife, Sharice, and their family. We'll have a ringing of the bell in a moment of silence. After the moment of silence, we'll follow directly into invocation from Ian Fletcher. Thank you.
Now faith is the confidence in what we hope for, an assurance of what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. Our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us something that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary. We have lost another Rotarian, Dusty. May he rest in peace. Give strength and comfort to his wife, Sharice. It has been a tough year for so many Rotarians. I pray for continued support and lifting up of our Rotary family. Please help us to remain steadfast, immovable in our going and coming. Please help us to stay diligent in our homes, work, community, and with our families and friends. Keep our minds hopeful on our current state of being and continue to share our club's vision and pathway with us. Thank you for helping us to remain focused on our endeavors. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ian. If you're a guest or a visiting Rotarian, please remain standing. Everyone else can sit down. Don, do you have a chance to take the microphone out there? Don's doing double duty today, everybody. How about a nice hand for Don Bugos? Please state your name, Rotarian, and your guests.
Good afternoon. I'm Kent Walker, and I'm pleased to introduce my guest, Jerry Wickman, who actually was good friends with Bob Cade, and in light of the Cade Museum where we're meeting. So a great guy.
Thank you. Welcome. Yes.
Hello, I'm Tony Barr. Hello, I'm Tony Barr. This is Jacob Atem. He spoke here a couple of weeks ago as a lost boy from the Southern Sudan. So I'm so glad he's interested in our club.
Thank you. Welcome back again.
I'm Brendan Shortley, and I'm here with Layla Jabert. She is a researcher, neuroscience researcher at the University of Florida, and is studying specifically and researching Lou Gehrig's disease. So welcome, Layla.
Thank you. All right. Any others? I'm going to color on this.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Ivan Oelrich, and I'd like to introduce our guest today, who's Julia Thomas. She is our marketing director for Oelrich Construction.
Thank you.
Welcome to all of our guests, and I saw him waving earlier. A special welcome to Jerry Wickman. Good to see you, sir. Grew up playing in Suburban Heights in the backyard with his kids, Kelly and Brett. They both doing okay, Jerry? Very good. Okay. Again, how about a nice hand for all of our guests joining us here today? Next, we'd normally do announcements, but seeing none, we'll move right into an Easter poem. Are you ready for the one, the only, John Gregory?
Sure. This poem is called Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow. Oh, I got more. Mary Chance opened the fridge, saw Bunny nesting. The Easter Bunny continued contesting. She wanted him oust. This is a Westing house. Well, you see, he said, I'm just Westing. Chad had trouble at the feaster. He just had a beaster. He couldn't breathe. He lost all his teeth. Wife gave him a rabbit punch for Easter. At Easter, to church, we go like centuries. We enable all people. That'd be plenty. My church accepts all folks, any denominations, no jokes, preferring by all means 10s and 20s. The church at Easter was building a new gym. Preacher told his flock they could pick out 3 hymns. They had to give money. Sarah gave $100K, honey. She stood up and said, I'll take him and him and him. Happy Easter. Thanks, John.
Thank you, John, you funny wabbit. Up next, we turn the meeting over, ladies and gentlemen, to your president. I give you Matthew Brady.
Yeah, we didn't practice that at all. You know, real quick, I wanted to go back for Dusty. You know, in Ian's invocation, kind of was a lot of what I wanted to say, that it really, really has been a tough year. You know, this past year was our 1-year mark of Zoom, transition into hybrid, but there's been many tough areas, great loss in many areas of life, economy, social, family, even here as a club. But just remember to keep uplifting your fellow Rotarians. We are an extended family. If you see a need, please make others aware of it. Take it upon yourself. Reach out and lift up. We cannot change loss as in the past few weeks and losing members, but we can definitely uplift those that are there. And then we think of the positive. We're going to be talking about this facility and this beautiful view and how we've transformed and where we are today, which is amazing. I'm going to call out Ryan Thompson. Married this past week. Congratulations. So we can continue even we can support in the tough times and we can uplift in the great times. No, I was getting to you, or I missed something, but that's a great deal. Another great aspect is when we talk about this facility, you know, we picked up 3 members here, which has been amazing. And I love to see each and every one of you in involvement. And the first of the 3 is going to come forward now for Craft Talk. And that is Jenna Asas, Senior Director of Operations here at the Cade Museum. And I'm going to turn the mic over to her for her Craft Talk.
All right, let's take this off. So good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jenna Ostis. I am the Senior Director of Operations here at the Cade Museum. I wasn't really sure where to start today, so I'll start in the beginning, but I promise to keep it brief. I'm originally from Lambertville, Michigan, which is a suburb of Toledo, Ohio. I grew up in a restaurant family. We had 5 Mexican restaurants called El Matador, and I've had every restaurant job and experience you can possibly imagine. My father was an active Rotarian, which meant we were a Rotary family. For me, some of the highlights were the years of hosting the club meetings at our restaurant and being able to be a host family in Rotary Youth Exchange. I have so many great memories, and to this day, I still can't eat popcorn without thinking of Ildi and teaching me how to say popcorn in Hungarian, pato gato kukurica. I stayed close to home and attended the University of Michigan. During my time there, I developed a love of sports and a deep dislike of snow. As soon as I graduated, I moved to Florida. I landed in Cocoa Beach and took a job with Ron John Surf Shop. I quickly learned that while I loved the company, accounting really wasn't for me. A job opened up in the buying department and I moved into an assistant buyer. I started as an assistant in the men's department with swimwear and flip-flops, helped our women's swimwear buyer, and soon became the accessories buyer on my own. I was growing and advancing as Ron John's was growing and expanding their footprint in the state of Florida. As it turns out, I'm pretty good at organizing people, numbers, and processes, and I became their very first merchandise planner. I established a planning department there and played a key role in all new store development and store redevelopment. After a decade with Ron John's, I took a leap of faith. I got married, quit my job, and moved to Jakarta, Indonesia. Small town, 31 million people. My husband had been hired by Matahari department stores to establish and teach best practices for merchandising, communication, and vendor relations, and I was along for the adventure. Indonesia was a truly beautiful country, friendly and kind people, and I was fortunate enough to be able to travel and explore as he went about the country to their 150 so different retail locations. For those of you that are wondering, my husband is a UF grad, and we did stay awake into the wee hours of the night to watch Florida football. There's a 12-hour time difference. When we repatriated, we chose Gainesville. We wanted a pedestrian-friendly, mid-sized town with good music, good food, great sports, and art. I joined the Cade as their guest service and gift shop manager in February 2018, a few months before the museum opened. I was lucky to come and help put the icing on the cake. For those of you who might not already know, the mission of the Cade is to inspire and equip future inventors, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. This is a pretty audacious goal, and here we live it every day. We have an amazing team at the Cade, and I'm honored to count myself among them. In my current role, I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations of the museum. And once again, I find myself in the exciting position of being able to establish my own department, institutionalize best practices as policy, and hire, cultivate, and coach a team. I want to thank you all for your time today. I'm excited to be part of this Rotary Club. I'm excited to make my own memories with Rotary, and I'm excited to get to know each one of you.
All right. Before the meeting, I was talking to Tom, and I was going to have him introduce Jenna, and I was emphatic that I had her last name correct, and I was not. So that was on me. I apologize. Being Brady, you know, 2Ds, Brady, maybe I'm scarred, but I continually mess that up. So my apologies, but nonetheless, we are glad that you chose back to Gainesville. We're very thankful to be here at the Cade, and very thankful not only for your assistance in that process, but you being a member of this club. And you have now completed all the steps to turn your red badge to a blue badge. And here is a 4-way test plaque that you could put in your office or home and remind of the core values in the 4-way test of Rotary. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we are about to head into the program. As you know, we're not political. We try to stay away from those things, but we have always granted in a nonpartisan way an opportunity to support candidates to at least get on a forum. So afterwards, you can see Ed Ellett. He has a petition to help a candidate to just get to the forum and be able to sign that petition. So please see him. He'd help you out with that. And we're going to start towards the introduction of today's meeting. And I'll confess, we're in the process of transitioning from a Mac to a PC, and we do not have the pieces here for yet for the PowerPoint presentation. So we're going to slowly transition into that time. Tom's going to plug that in and have that ready to go. But to get started, I'm going to ask fellow Rotarian Craig Carter. He is going to introduce our speakers for today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. I'm Craig Carter, and when we started meeting here, I was looking out at Depot Park, and I think it was the second meeting. I walked over to Matt. I said, I got an idea. I said, we need to get Sarah to come speak about Depot Park and about what the CRA does. And we were fortunate enough to be able to arrange that. And then she thought about bringing Ivan, which is a great fit also. But I've known Sarah for many years. She is the daughter of our very own Lori and Jan Vidal, which are supposedly watching right now, enjoying their 50th wedding anniversary. So that's quite remarkable. I got on the city commission and Sarah started talking to me about the CRA. I had a lot of questions. I heard a lot of rumors. Then she was talking about Depot Park. And by the time she got finished with me, I knew we were going to have a problem. We were going to have a parking problem. And we do have a parking problem because it's a fabulous venue. Sarah was also talking to me, and if I'm correct, about porters and a sidewalk. And she was telling me a story, and she wasn't talking about the sidewalk, the paint, or the facade. She was talking about the people and a gentleman that got a full-time job with a company. He may or may not still be there, but it got a twinkle in Sarah's eye, which I call a tear. And I've always enjoyed listening to the human side of it because she's so passionate. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Sarah Vidal-Finn and Ivan Oelrich. Please come up.
Good afternoon. We're going to have to put this somewhere between the two of us so that different heights here. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Craig, and for inviting us to come and speak to you about the park today. And just let me know, somebody give me this in the back if you can't hear. So we have a lot of information for you today, and I think our biggest hope for this presentation is that when you look out this window at your next meeting and the meetings to come from this beautiful venue, that you'll have a little bit of insight and some unique information about the park. And so we have a bunch of slides and pretty pictures. Hopefully we'll get them up But really, I brought Ivan. Well, I didn't bring him. I asked him, and he was so gracious to do this with me because I think it's really interesting, the connection between the owner and the contractor. We both see things from different perspectives. I had much different duties than he had on this project, but it really takes a coordinated team to get something like this done. It's nothing short of a miracle, and we could have spent way more money than we did on this park. There were a lot of difficult decisions along the way, so hopefully that's a good lead-in to this. And I think, do you want to just go ahead and get started, and then we'll catch up with the pictures?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That works. Can you see the screen? We need to move this up just a hair. So you can see the slides as they go.
I can kind of see it. There's a glare. All right, we'll get it done. We'll get it done. All right. Well, just to kick it off, I thank you for introducing me, former Commissioner Craig Carter, and I'm going to let Ivan just start with kind of the park in general and a few comments, and then we'll launch into the presentation when it comes up.
All right. Well, thanks, Sarah. So as you can, this is a perfect place to talk about Depot Park. As you can see out the window, it's a beautiful space. And what we want to talk about today is just some of the different parts and pieces that you may not realize about this park and what this park really is. Not only is it a park, it's a stormwater facility. It's a reclaimed brownfield site. There's a lot of things that happened out here to make this work. And so as soon as that presentation comes up, we got a bunch of cool pictures that we'll go through and show you all those parts and pieces.
Okay. And today we're hoping to show you that Depot Park is more than just a park. It's a lot more than you think. So we're going to give you a glimpse into everything that went into this, a project of this scope and magnitude, and how it has also catalyzed additional investment along this South Main Street corridor, and really is becoming a new gateway into downtown.
All right, I think we got a presentation. Hang on.
Right. Anecdotally, I'll share that on the South Main project, our tagline for that project was a place to go to, not just through. And as someone who grew up not entirely in Gainesville, but definitely had family here, it's really unique in my lifetime to be able to see how this has changed so much from the light industrial uses that used to be up and down the corridor. In fact, my maternal grandfather had his refrigeration business on South Main back in the day. So it was particularly special for me to be able to work on this project and to see what's happened in its wake. So,
well, all right, we're done ad-libbing. You can go. We can go now.
All right, we can go.
So we're going to have fun with this today, and we're going to talk about the top 10 things that you may or may not have known about Depot Park, but you'll leave here smarter. So we're going to have fun with this, and we got Dave Letterman to help us out, and then on top of that, you get the bonus of Sarah and I. So with that, we'll get going and start with number 10.
All right. So the history of the site. So I will give you a disclaimer that there's so much to tell that we really had to choose. We have a ton of slides and we'll get through them, but just picking out some important pieces along the way, and will be available for questions afterwards. So Depot Park does have a very, okay, I get the hint. Depot Park has a very rich history, but one that left a lot of challenges to be addressed in order to create a safe public space. As Ivan mentioned, this was a brownfield site located in the vicinity of the former railroad depot on Depot Avenue. It consisted of about 32 acres of land. There were several landowners to begin with, and several former sources of contamination: gas stations, cement plant, railroad activities, petroleum tank farms, and a manufactured gas plant, and potentially others too. But the primary source of contamination here was the coal tar residue from the former manufactured gas plant.
All right, so let's take a look. If you can see that photo, that's a photo of what Depot Park looked like back in when the train still came through there. You'll see on the left side of the screen that train kind of circling around towards the top. At the very top of the screen, you can see the depot building right where it sits today. You can still see it out the window. This, like I said, cool place to go through this. But this is what the site looked like back in the earlier parts of probably the 1800s into the or late 1800s into the early 1900s. Here's a picture that we have. You can see all the folks standing outside the train, bunch of men. I looked at the photo real close. I don't see any ladies in there, so I don't know what they were up to. But coming to the depot building, and if you've been over there and looked at that same view, that you get from right here, looking down the side of the building there. So a very neat historic place. And then Sarah talked to you a little bit about all the uses out here on the site and what develops as the brownfield site. And there's, there was oil out there. They were making creosote, wood. There's been fuel, all kinds of different things have created the pollution out there that made that a brownfield site. Downtown Gainesville, just, whether you know it or not, there has been a lot of pollution over the years in downtown Gainesville. And this was really the center of all that, from history.
So if we're on the picture of the
brown
side of the building, brownfield side. Okay.
Oh, I skipped ahead of the.
It's okay. We'll go to brownfields.
Let's do it.
So the city of Gainesville was awarded a regional brownfield pilot project grant. And this was in 1997. The brownfield site was located in the former vicinity of Depot Avenue in downtown Gainesville. And I kind of went over everything that we found there. But in 2000, a remedial action plan was developed to remediate the site, and GRU actually managed and what we called the Big Dig. So some of you probably drove by and saw this huge hole in the ground and mounds of dirt and wondered what in the world is going on and why is this dirt sitting here for so long. So the area remediated was excavated to a depth of 50 feet, and over 147,000 tons of contaminated soil were removed. And also over 40 million gallons of contaminated water was treated and discharged. So the contaminated soils were actually removed from the site. He can tell you more about that, to an approved landfill for disposal.
Yeah, so here you can start to see the picture of them. In this previous picture, you can see them digging it out, and there's some green funkiness down there in the bottom. And then this picture, you can see they're starting to put it back. And this all happened, well before Oelrich Construction got out on the site. This dig, they did a big push to get this contamination taken care of, they being the city of Gainesville. And, it was a huge undertaking. When we got the site, it looked like this. It had the big pond you see was already done, and it was timed, and the brownfield contamination site was covered with a 2-foot cap out there. So they had done the remediation, all that they could do, and then they back to it. And then when they put a 2-foot cap of clean soil over the top of the whole thing. So when we got the site, it looked like this. And this is how we laid out the site. We had on the bottom left there is where we set up our office, and that was one way in and one way out. So all the contamination came through there and was cleaned. And you'll see here is a picture of our site. On that, there's a it's all covered in gravel, so they have to drive across that gravel. Before they get to that gravel, there's a little bridge there with sprays up under the truck. It's cleaning off all the bottoms of all the trucks as they go through there.
So one interesting thing during construction, and you can imagine, how do you keep track of all this? How do you figure out where did the dirt come from? What was in it? Where did it go with a 34-acre site? So they developed this tracker, which I thought was amazing. It just made a lot of sense, right? And so this is a picture of it at a grand scale, but really how you all dealt with that and how you managed that piece was crucial. Number one, to ensuring trust with the other agencies that entrusted us with the actual work. but also to keep everybody in the loop as to what was going on. And if we had to go back at a later date, we knew exactly what happened, in each area. So just, I want you to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So what we did, we had to report to the FDEP, everything that happened out there. There was a clean cap. The cap had to be maintained. And we also had to go obviously put in storm footings, all kinds of different stuff. So we had to document how that went. And if you see on this guy right here, we just set up a grid system, and the grid, went numbers across the top and letters down the bottom and tried to simplify it. And so when you look at that, each of those grids is probably about 5,000 square feet, something like that. Here's an example of grid B11, and you can see in that on the, that it's up in the upper right-hand corner of the site. When we blew it up here, you can see the purple there is footings for the rotunda. Those, that's documenting where that's going to happen there. The green is some wastewater, and then the orange down there is stormwater. And so those are the things that happened inside of that grid. And then we took that grid and we made a report, and we reported on that grid. As you can see on this slide, or maybe you can or can't see, this is the page that went in our book to the FDAT. And it talks about, what we had to do. Did you have to, breach the cap? Yes. Did you find contaminated soils? Yes. What did you do with the soils? And it's all written out there. And so we had a page of that for every part of the grid system, because you had to take the soils you can see in the picture there in the upper right-hand corner, and segregate soils that came out of those holes, like we were doing the stormwater, and put back fresh soil, which they're doing in the bottom right there.
So just a quick comment about that. That's making the complicated very simple, which we really needed on this project.
That's right.
A lot of moving parts and pieces.
And interestingly enough, soil of one level of contamination can go to a place in Florida, but once it gets to the really nasty stuff, poor Georgia has to take it. So we had to go there.
We feel so bad for them. Number 8, stormwater. Everybody gets so excited about stormwater.
Love stormwater.
So one of our jobs at the Community Redevelopment Agency was to coordinate with GRU, who was doing the big remediation, and Public Works on the stormwater pond creation, because we had to make sure, basically we got to put the lipstick on a pig, right?
That's right.
And so we had to make sure that our design, right, met up with their design, and that we were coordinating the entire time, schedule and a whole bunch of other stuff. So what I like to call the stormwater feature here is the core practical function of the park. So in addition to everything that we wanted to accomplish here, which, by the way, this project took over 20 years, I always feel kind of bad standing here and talking about it because so many people worked on it before us. This had just an extensive community engagement years before we were ever able to kind of move this piece forward. So I do want to mention that. But this pond was created to treat stormwater from an 89-acre area in downtown Gainesville. The City of Gainesville's Public Works Department developed the basin plan and designed a stormwater treatment system to capture the runoff from those acres of downtown and run off the remaining 42 acres rerouted from the adjacent Sweetwater Branch Creek. So the design, it consists of a couple things. It's a treatment train approach where the stormwater flows through a series of baffle boxes, 4 bays, wet detention ponds, and a braided stream and wetlands. And part of that became the natural area that you see over here to your right.
All right. And so here's one of those, this is called a sun tree box, a baffle box. And it's buried in the ground. There's one right over here, and then there's another one on the other side over there, and they're catching all the stormwater that comes from downtown. Comes out over here and then empties it into there. But these things are amazing. It's amazing what gets in there. They pull like tires and whole buckets and all kinds of like car parts, and it's like, how did that get in the storm drain? How did it fit? But it does, and they pull it all out. So this thing's actually clean every now and again. Ryan's giving me the look, but let him talk about it. And then, but when the stormwater is treated, that's basically what this part is a stormwater treatment system, stormwater remediation system. And when you do that, it's cleaning that stormwater from all the grit and grime that picks up in town. And it's delivering down here. It's being treated naturally, and it goes back into the creek. And as you can see in these photos here, it created wildlife. And that's certainly one of the things, that's really neat about this project, this park.
Right. So the pond being the core function of the park really provided a framework from which to design and activate the site. And also in many ways, it became the focal point of the park. When you walk in, you look straight down to the water, and all paths lead. Important for us to think about, how do we activate the pond? We envisioned and in dealing and working with the community, there was a desire to have food truck rallies and big events, right? And so we wanted to make sure that the promenade would be able to hold the weight of the vehicles that we would take up on the promenade, and a lot of other intangibles like that had to be worked out in order to really activate the site, right? Because we didn't want it to be a passive place. So number 7 is budget.
That's no fun.
So we don't have many slides on this because really the sky is the limit, as I said, for these types of projects. So funding for this project actually was kind of cobbled together. That's the best way to explain it, from a lot of different sources. So if you look out here and see all the trees, a lot of those were paid for through the city's tree mitigation fund. Public Works Department contributed for the railing around the pond that was installed on our project. We had some grant funding for the park trail, one of the city's internal revenue bonds, campus development agreement, and an urban development action grant and tax increment financing. So I remember the original project manager, Diane Gilreath, she might have been the second. We went through some project managers on this project. I remember the spreadsheet she had just to keep track of the funding, and that's a huge job when you work for the city, is really making sure that these funding, mechanisms are all spent in the correct way for the correct part of the project. And that's just one piece of it, right? And it was very complicated. But the bottom line is, basically, we had an $8 million GMP, and we had about $6 million to work with. So how did we make that happen?
Lots of creativity, and we'll show you some of that as we go through this. But yeah, when we first got Diane's all her parts and pieces and put it together and started putting numbers to it, we were sitting at $2 million over where the CRA had to spend. So we had to make, we worked as a team. We've done a lot of projects with the CRA, so we worked well with them and bring in, ideas and concepts to get this budget back in line. One of the original designs had a amphitheater out there, very, fully constructed amphitheater. Now it's just a sand hill, and it works fine, and it's great, and it's kind of cool, but I like it is.
We prefer grassy knoll.
Grassy knoll, sorry, yeah. Sand hill, grassy knoll. There's you ding it, yeah.
This is why we balance each other.
Right.
So the depot building, there were so many desires for this building. If you remember, it was not even, sitting here. It was over here for a long time in pieces. It was so fun to watch that, be moved very close to its original location. In fact, on Depot Avenue, there's a little plaque in the street that shows the original location of the building. So I'm not telling you to go walk in the middle of the street, but if you do have to cross, look out for that. So that's a really cool thing. But, we had folks that really wanted that to be a train museum, to talk about the railroad and our past, but we kind of felt like that had been done many times throughout the state of Florida. There are a lot of buildings that look just like this throughout our state when you drive around. So keep your eye out for that. But what we really thought, and in working with the community, was, how do we activate this even more? The city should not be really running buildings like that. And, we really wanted to give it back to the public and do something that would activate the entire building, but also have one tenant who would manage the entire building and context area. So in doing that, we were able to help grow a local business. So it's the folks that own the Top restaurant downtown in the Atlantic, and a whole bunch of other little entertainment bars and restaurants. So they actually activated that entire building, and they have a long-term lease with the city of Gainesville to run that. And it's just become amazing, you know, what they offer there, and then what a destination it's become. We also knew with the killer children's play area that we needed a place for the adults to be able to relax, get some drinks, and to be able to stay, you know. So this would be a place that you wouldn't just come play for an hour, but you could spend an entire afternoon into the evening. So tension did exist between going for LEED Gold on this building, which we were able to achieve, which was no small feat, staying true to a historic rehabilitation project. It would have been much easier to seal this building up, but authenticity was really, really important.
Yeah, authenticity is a real big part of the project. And that's one of the fun things about working with the CRA is they're always looking to make it truly Gainesville. So yeah, we built inside of this, the Top restaurant for the Top. It's Papa Top. It's a C-store, a convenience store. One of the, we went to go put the coolers inside of this building, and it took like 20 seconds for it to be completely soaked everywhere. Because that building is truly wide open like it was originally built. And so all that humidity coming through there, we had to go back and kind of refit that, and keeping with the original, you know, intent and design of the building, to retrofit it for modern type stuff like walk-in coolers and things that they didn't have in 1800.
So creating the magic.
So let's run through some of this, and we're going to pick up the pace here. So
Yeah,
we're
we
getting
do.
but so let's just run through some quick construction type stuff. You know, we talked a little bit about the connection to the railroad here. You can see this is, you know, putting out the foundations for the original sign over there, tying in those rail lines around the site. This is footings for the rotunda. We showed you, I put this in here because it's a picture similar to the purple circles where we had to disturb the 2-foot cap, but that's what they look like going in. There's the depot sign of the rotunda getting installed. There's the splash pad, and you can see right in the center of that splash pad is just 2 poles and a top brace sticking up. And in the end, these guys came, they do Disney World type stuff, and made that big old huge piece of rock that's out there that is the splash pad. It's amazing to watch them work. And then these parts and pieces, if you can see in there, we found a company in Michigan that, or excuse me, in Minnesota that made this stuff. And so we sent air potatoes, the kudzu, the plant that ate the South, sent it up there, and those are the little round things there. They're making the air potatoes, and the leaves, they're making them there. And I think in this picture, no, maybe it's the next one, is a picture of the main play piece, which is it's made out of, or it looks like an oak tree. And so they did drawings, and then they did little models, and then they did big drawings like that. And so in that photo, you can also see them doing the brick, which is part of the old chimney stack from GRU that's used to sit out there. But you can see the drawings of the oak tree thing. There they are making it in their factory. These guys are just artists. It was unbelievable to see all that happen and come together. And then there it is, you know, parts and pieces coming out to the job site. And then there it is put together before we put the AstroTurf and all that. And, you know, those things are really cool with it. You can see the raccoon in there. There's pictures, there's little, if you go look at that thing, there's lots of details, little, you know, bugs and lizards and all kinds of stuff in that. It's a really a neat piece.
So this was the first project that we actually sent, you know, air potato, tree bark, and bricks up to a vendor, you know, so they could actually create molds and make it truly authentic to Gainesville. So with this project, we knew that it was so important to the heart of this community. We also, in the children's play area, really wanted to push the envelope while also honoring the authenticity. But when I say push the envelope, we learned a lot about playground design, and turns out that I don't know when playgrounds started getting really boring, but you probably noticed a change in your lifetime. And we really wanted something that would challenge kids and kind of push the limit on playground design. And in learning more, we learned that actually those safe playgrounds are actually more dangerous statistically, because kids end up doing things you're not supposed to do on those playgrounds because it's not fun. So a lot of thought and effort went into this. We even had a community engagement with children and allowed them to, design what they wanted to see here in the park.
Yeah, so we also had there's an inspector, believe it or not, it's a job. He goes to playgrounds and inspects for safety and goes around and, yep, we'll be done in 5 minutes here. But inspects for safety. So that's it was an interesting fellow to walk around with. But we have some neat pieces out there. So let's get back into the authenticity of the site, which I think is really cool.
Sure.
You're on that one.
Are we on this one? Okay.
You're on one more. Back that way.
This way.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
perfect. Sorry, I can't see the TV from this angle. So the children's play area is the size of a football field, just in case you didn't know. It is huge, and it has a lot of different activity areas. One thing that was really important was to honor the authenticity of Gainesville, which we mentioned with the oak tree climber. Also, there is kind of a Timucuan Indian area with the totem pole. And tell them about the totem pole.
Yeah, so we hired a fellow named Palm Tree Charlie, who showed up with a palm tree and a chainsaw, and he made that thing. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Also, the smokestack that sadly came down, I think right before
Right as the job was going. Yeah.
the project due to structural issues. We were able to salvage some of those bricks to get them to Minnesota, but we created a smaller scale smokestack, right, to pay homage to the former one.
Yeah, which we talked about earlier. They used the actual bricks from the smokestack to form those and to make them.
And then the train. We couldn't have this park without some sort of train, right? The beautiful thing about this train is that it does provide ADA access for children in wheelchairs. And so they can get up inside this and play there. And that was also very important to us, not only in the children's play area, but the ADA accessibility throughout the entire park.
Yeah, and a quick note about that. There's a button you push, and it has different sayings for the kids when you go in there. And the voices on that are our voices. We went to Jeff Sims' recording studio and recorded all kinds of different things. Next stop, Depot Park. And so if you go in there and you hear my voice, it is my voice.
So also there was an existing bike memorial there on site. It was an accident that took the lives of some longtime local cyclists. We wanted to honor that, but also make it a more prominent feature. So in fact, that section of the park had its own dedication with a lot of the folks that were friends with the cyclists that passed away in that accident. But, we were able to kind of create an appropriate hardscape around it and to really set that apart as a place to go and remember, and then not only remember the folks who passed, but remember to share the road.
Yeah, and so there's a nice walkway that signifies that and solidifies that.
So we'll go quickly through these. Of course, we worked in a lot about power generation. We have down power lines here.
Which we caught crap because they didn't think it was good for kids to play on power lines.
He can say that, I can't. And and then this was a big value engineering decision here, which to me is really interesting because it's sometimes the simplest things that resonate the most with people. And this was definitely a value engineering decision that has become one of, I think, the most special places in the park.
In case you can't tell, that's a leftover storm pipe that was sitting on the site, and we were trying to figure out how to get rid of it. Instead of that, we drilled holes in it and ran the creek through it, and it's a crowd favorite now.
And then we had to do an interactive water feature. Gainesville didn't have one. We knew that would be a draw, not only locally, but regionally. And it is the swamp. So we had to bring the water in. So
yeah, and so this, this is where those two posts were sticking up with the thing. Those fellows came down and literally created that with concrete and made it look that way. I'm just continuing to be amazed. And there's manatee bones in there and shark's teeth and all kinds of cool stuff for the kids to find.
So the ripple effect has been really strong from First Magnitude Brewery. That became a destination. All of a sudden we had cars all up and down South Main at different times of the day. So really we were able to, with this project, catalyze a whole bunch of redevelopment along the corridor and start and finish the South Main Street project, which, was amazing. The Cade Museum as well. So we'll get to that next.
All right.
So this building that we're sitting in actually started as a public solicitation to site a museum here. We wanted something that would bring in a regional draw, but also be a place for local school kids to come and learn about creativity and invention and innovation. And so the Cade family responded to that, and we were able to facilitate a long-term land lease here on the site. And now we have the Cade Museum, which is amazing. And we also worked with them, the CRA did, on receiving new market tax credits as part of the financing for this overall project here, which was a first for us. I think I lost some hair on that, but it was an amazing experience to work with them on new markets. And then also we were able to ink a development agreement with them to create additional parking here on site. So that was a little bit of a change because it could have been private parking, but we worked with them to kind of increase it and to have the buses unload and load on site instead of in South Main. So I think we worked really well with the Cades, and it was great that you all were able to build it.
Very, very fortunate to do that. And what a timely having Jenna do her craft talk today. It's perfect. But the Cade Museum is obviously one of the we're very proud of this building. It's a beautiful facility, and it was a great team to work with. So, but you have seen this, so we're going to keep on trucking. It's a beautiful space. We got 1 minute, Sarah.
All right.
So up to you.
Bottom line is creating connections. I think this is the most important thing to me, is not only are there strong physical connections, many of which we've discussed today with the rail trail. This is mile marker 0 for our rail trail system. So it all starts here and ends here. Of course, the stormwater, how that connects from downtown south to the prairie. And there are a lot of intangible connections that have been made that have ensured the success of the project. I think one that I really want to mention is the connections between the departments, other agencies, and our regulators. We all worked really well together. It wasn't easy, but it took a huge level of coordination to make this happen. I haven't seen it before or since this project. So I think it was one that everybody really believed in. Then secondly, I wanted to mention that the vision from years of public engagement, we had to connect many different kind of starts and stops at community engagement. So when you get into a project like this with this level of remediation, the timeline kind of kept stretching and stretching and stretching and stretching. And so, how do you take an original vision from 20 years prior and make sure that you hit the mark? So I think part of that is because there's something for everybody to love in this park. And no matter if it were Craig Carter or some of his contemporaries on the dais, everybody kind of bought into this because it had all the ingredients of a really good project that no matter what your political leaning, you could support. And then finally, and I think the most special, are the connections between East and West. This is the first major investment in East Gainesville. I know it's barely over the line, but it's been amazing to see how this park connects some of our historic Black neighborhoods in Southeast, Porters, downtown, and just brings everyone together. Go on a weekend and just look around and see the different types of people that not only come here from our community, but from our general area, our metro area. So with that, one closing thought, and that is, when this was dedicated, a lot of people said, "Oh, aren't you proud? You finally finished this." And number one, we can't take all the credit because this has been on the way for such a long time. But we spent so much time looking at that site and design and thinking about how people would use the park. And I can say the greatest satisfaction of creating a space like this and delivering a space like this really is when the community makes it their own, and people do things out here I would have never imagined. Most of them very positive. But it's just been amazing to see the community embrace this park, and it really has become, Gainesville's Central Park. So any closing
Yeah,
comments?
absolutely. This park, when we were building it and going through this process, I knew that it was going to be unique. I knew that it was going to be cool. but I never envisioned that you would come out here and see all the uses that's happened out here and what it's become. And it's very humbling for me to have had a little part in that, because this is a vision that lasted for 20 years. But so thank y'all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both. I appreciate your passion for this site, for this community, Rotary, through family, for your dedication. I assume if y'all are available, maybe for some questions afterwards. And fellow Rotarian Matt Marino's here. He might know a thing or two about the site as well. So throw him under the bus. But yeah, he slept the whole time. But thank you both very much. And as you know, this year, Ivan, our theme this year is Rotary Opens Opportunities. And I thank you both for the opportunity that you both took a part of in providing this for our community. So small commemorative coin for today's visit, if you'll take that. And thank you both very much. Thank you. It is a great spot for our community, great building, great park. Also, I know we're short on time, but thank you to not only the A team for here, but A team here in the house, Tom and Don. I can tell you, I've helped out when we have things that are not going well. I've helped out with Tom at Quarterback Club. It's stressful, but they're awesome and they rocked it, and I appreciate it very much. And round of applause for them as well. So ending up today, Tom Collette, sports broadcaster, kind of a fan of basketball, brought this quote: "I like to take walks in the park by myself where no one can bother me and I can think." Magic Johnson. Have a great day, fellow Rotarians.